Rain hammered against the windows of Manhattan General Hospital. Dr. Jin Chen pulled off his surgical mask and glanced at the clock, midnight. Another 18-hour shift complete. His reputation preceded him everywhere he went, the youngest neurosurgeon to ever own a network of private medical centers across 3 continents. Women threw themselves at him constantly. Celebrities, heiresses, fellow surgeons with impressive credentials. He turned them all away with the same cold response. Love is a distraction I cannot afford. Jean walked through the hospital's back exit, preferring the quiet service entrance to avoid the usual crowd of admirers waiting by the main doors. The rain had turned the alley into a river. He was about to step into his waiting car when he noticed something unusual. A figure huddled against the brick wall, soaked through and trembling violently. He almost kept walking. New York was full of people who made bad choices. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way her dark skin glistened under the streetlight, or how her body curled protectively around a worn backpack. He approached and knelt down. Her forehead burned with fever. Her breathing came shallow and rapid. Pneumonia, possibly worse. Without hesitation, Jean scooped her into his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, unfocused and glassy. "Please," she whispered. "My papers, my visa." She thought he was immigration. Jin's jaw tightened. "She's dying and worried about deportation." He carried her back through the doors he'd just exited. When Tobi regained consciousness, panic seized her immediately. Bright lights. White walls. Medical equipment beeping steadily. Hospital meant bills. Bills meant debt she could never escape. A tall figure stood by the window, his silhouette sharp against the gray morning light. She tried to sit up, but her body refused to cooperate. "You had bacterial pneumonia," he said without turning around. His voice carried an edge of authority that made her instinctively straighten despite her weakness. "Another 6 hours and you would have died in that alley." Tobi's throat felt like sandpaper. "I can't pay for this. I don't have insurance. I'm just a student." Jean finally faced her. His features were striking, high cheekbones, intense dark eyes, a mouth set in a permanent line of disapproval. "Everyone pays eventually. This hospital doesn't run on charity." Her heart sank. She'd come to America from Ghana on a scholarship to study public health, dreaming of returning home to help her community. Instead, she'd spent 2 years juggling 3 jobs, sending money to her sick mother, and barely surviving. This hospital bill would destroy everything. "How much?" she forced herself to ask. He named a figure that made her stomach drop. She'd have to work for 5 years straight just to cover the treatment. Tobi closed her eyes, fighting tears. She refused to cry in front of this cold, beautiful man who looked at her like she was just another problem to solve. "I'll work," she said quietly but firmly. "Whatever you need. Cleaning, filing, anything. I'll pay back every cent." Jean studied her with an expression she couldn't read. Most people in her position begged or made excuses. This woman sat up straighter despite obvious pain and met his eyes with dignity. Something about that irritated him. Or maybe it intrigued him. He wasn't sure which. "Fine," he said curtly. "Report to the administrative office tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. sharp. Don't be late." As he walked out, he told himself this was purely practical. The hospital always needed workers. Nothing more. But that night, alone in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, he couldn't stop thinking about the quiet strength in her eyes. Tobi's first week at Manhattan General was brutal. The other staff made their opinions clear immediately. Who does she think she is? Just some charity case the doctor took pity on. Did you see her cleaning the supply closets? How the mighty have fallen. She must be after his money. Why else would Dr. Chen keep someone so unqualified around? Every whisper felt like a knife, but Tobi had survived worse. She arrived before dawn and stayed past midnight. She scrubbed floors until her hands cracked. She organized medical records with meticulous care. She learned the names of regular patients and greeted them warmly. Slowly, grudgingly, a few staff members began to respect her work ethic. Jin watched from a distance. He told himself he was simply monitoring an employee's performance. But his eyes sought her out more often than necessary. He noticed how she never complained despite the grueling schedule. How she smiled genuinely at confused elderly patients, taking time to explain their prescriptions in simple terms. How she studied medical textbooks during her lunch breaks, determined to finish her interrupted education. One evening, he found her in the staff library long after her shift ended. Books surrounded her, and exhaustion etched lines around her eyes. "You're still here," he said from the doorway. Tobi jumped, then relaxed when she saw him. "Yes, Dr. Chen. I have an exam next week. My professor is letting me continue courses online." Jin stepped inside. "You work 12 hours, then study for how many more?" She smiled, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "However many it takes. Sleep is negotiable. Success isn't." Something twisted in his chest. He recognized that determination. He'd lived his entire life with the same relentless drive. But seeing it in her felt different. She wasn't chasing wealth or status. She was fighting for survival, for a purpose, for a dream bigger than herself. Over the following weeks, Jin found his carefully constructed walls beginning to crack. He started bringing her coffee during late-night study sessions, never with a word, just setting it beside her books. When another doctor snapped at her for a minor filing error, Jin's reprimand was so sharp the entire floor fell silent. When she missed lunch 3 days in a row, he personally ensured a meal was delivered to wherever she was working. Tobi noticed every gesture. Her heart performed tiny acrobatics each time she caught him watching her. She tried to ignore it. Men like Jin Chen didn't fall for women like her. They married socialites and heiresses, people who fit into their glittering world. Still, she couldn't help the warmth spreading through her chest when his eyes softened, just slightly, whenever she walked into a room. The shift happened on a rainy Tuesday night. Jin left the hospital late, exhausted from a double shift covering for a sick colleague. The streets were slick and empty. She was halfway to the subway when a group of men stepped from the shadows. Her blood turned to ice. "Hey beautiful," one of them called. "You lost?" She quickened her pace, clutching her bag. They followed. Her heart hammered. She broke into a run, but one of them grabbed her arm. She screamed. Suddenly, a car screeched to a halt. Jin emerged like a storm. His usual composed demeanor shattered into fury. "Let her go. Now." The men looked at his expensive suit, his commanding presence, and apparently decided the trouble wasn't worth it. They scattered. Jin immediately turned to Tobi. His hands gently but urgently checked her arms, her face, looking for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did they harm you?" His voice shook with an emotion she'd never heard from him before. "I'm okay," she whispered, trembling. "You saved me again." Tobi's control finally snapped. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight against his chest. His heart pounded against her cheek. "Do you have any idea what could have happened? You cannot walk these streets alone at night. Do you understand me?" Tobi's tears finally came, soaking into his expensive shirt. "I'm sorry. I didn't think. I just wanted to get home." He didn't let go. His hand moved to cradle the back of her head. "From now on, you call me. I don't care what time. I will drive you. Every single night if necessary." She pulled back slightly to look at his face. "Why do you care so much?" The question hung between them. Tobi's throat worked. His carefully maintained facade crumbled. Because, he said roughly, I cannot bear the thought of losing you. The admission shocked them both. Tobi's eyes widened. Jin looked away, jaw clenched. He'd said too much. Revealed too much. But he couldn't take it back. Didn't want to take it back. That night, he drove her home in silence. But when she climbed out of the car, he caught her hand. Tobi. She turned back, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Be careful. Please. She nodded, unable to speak. As she watched his car disappear into the rainy night, she pressed her hand to her racing heart. Something had changed. Something terrifying and wonderful. The hospital buzzed with gossip by morning. Dr. Chen was seen leaving with that girl. He's never shown interest in anyone before. Maybe she's different. Maybe he's finally human after all. Tobi tried to ignore the stares and whispers. She focused on her work, on her studies, on anything except the memory of being held in Jin's arms. But Jin was done pretending. He found reasons to work near wherever she was stationed. He asked about her mother in Ghana, really listening to her answers. He surprised her with medical textbooks she'd been trying to buy secondhand. He defended her so fiercely when a patient was rude that the entire ward heard his clipped, icy reprimand. One evening, they ended up alone in the supply room. Tobi was restocking shelves. Jin came in ostensibly to find something but really just to be near her. The small space felt charged with unspoken tension. She reached for a high shelf and stumbled. He caught her instantly. Suddenly they were inches apart, his hands on her waist, her palms pressed against his chest. Their eyes locked. Tobi's breath hitched. Jin's control hung by a thread. He should step back. He should maintain professional distance. But her lips were so close, and her eyes held a question he desperately wanted to answer. Just as he started to lean in, someone called his name from the hallway. The spell broke. He released her, stepping back sharply. Tobi's cheeks burned. She turned away, busying herself with supplies while her heart threatened to beat out of her chest. Jin closed his eyes, struggling for composure. This woman was destroying every defense he'd spent 35 years building. And the terrifying part was that he was starting to welcome it. That night, Jin sat in his study, staring at nothing. His phone rang. His father. The conversation was brief and brutal. I've heard disturbing rumors about you and some African girl who works at your hospital. End whatever this is immediately. She's unsuitable in every way. Our family has standards. Jin's grip tightened on the phone. Father, with all due respect, my personal life is not your concern. Standards? He scoffed. You mean money and status? That's all you've ever cared about. You taught me love was weakness. Maybe you were wrong. The line went dead. His father had hung up on him. Jin should have felt angry. Instead, he felt liberated. The next morning, he found Tobi in the cafeteria, studying over breakfast. He sat down across from her without asking. She looked up, surprised. Dr. Chen. Jin, he corrected quietly. When we're not working, I'd prefer you call me Jin. Her lips curved into a small smile. That feels too informal. He leaned forward slightly. Tobi, nothing about what I feel for you is formal. She froze, her coffee cup halfway to her lips. What? Jin had planned to be careful, to ease into this conversation. But he was tired of pretending. Tired of fighting what he felt. I need to tell you something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond. She nodded slowly, setting down her cup. For my entire life, I've rejected everyone who tried to get close to me. I built walls so high I convinced myself I didn't need anyone. Love seemed like a liability, something that would make me weak, distracted, vulnerable. His eyes held hers. Then I found you dying in an alley. And every day since, you've been dismantling those walls brick by brick. Tobi's hands trembled in her lap. Jin continued, his voice low and intense. You work harder than anyone I've ever met. You face prejudice and hardship with grace. You smile when you have every reason to break. You study medicine not for money or prestige but because you genuinely want to heal people. You make me want to be better than the cold, distant man I've become. He reached across the table, his hand palm up, offering but not demanding. I'm falling for you, Tobi. No, he corrected himself. I've already fallen. Completely. Irrevocably. And it terrifies me because I've never felt anything like this before. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She'd told herself this couldn't happen. That she was foolish to hope. But here he was, this brilliant, powerful, untouchable man, laying his heart bare. I feel it too, she whispered. I've tried so hard not to. You're my boss, you're from a different world, people already judge me for things I can't control. I thought these feelings would destroy me. Jin stood and moved to her side of the table. He crouched beside her chair so they were eye level. Then let them destroy the fear instead. Let them build something new. She touched his face tentatively, as if he might disappear. What will people say? What about your family? Your reputation? He turned his head to kiss her palm. I don't care. For the first time in my life, I truly don't care what anyone thinks except you. His other hand found hers. You are worth every consequence. The cafeteria had gone quiet. Other staff members were watching, but neither Jin nor Tobi noticed. In that moment, there was only them. Only this fragile, fierce thing growing between them. Only the truth neither could deny anymore. She leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. Okay, she breathed. Okay. Over the next few weeks, their relationship shifted from hidden to undeniable. Jin stopped pretending their connection was professional. He brought her to hospital galas as his date, ignoring the shocked whispers. He visited her tiny apartment, stunned by how little she had but how warmly she'd made it feel like home. She met his colleagues not as a worker but as someone who belonged at his side. The pushback came hard and fast. Other doctors questioned her qualifications. Society reporters wrote snide articles about the neurosurgeon and the immigrant janitor. His father made good on his threat, cutting Jin off from the family's social circle and threatening to withdraw financial support from the hospital. Jin absorbed every blow without flinching. Nothing they said or did could make him regret his choice. Tobi struggled more. She hated being the reason for his family's rejection. She hated the cruel comments and knowing looks. One night, she broke down. I've ruined everything for you. Your father hates you now. People mock you. Maybe we should stop before more damage is done. Alexander pulled her close, his arms an unbreakable fortress around her. Listen to me, he said fiercely. You haven't ruined anything. You've given me everything. Before you, I was successful but empty. Rich but lonely. Respected but not really known. You see me, Tobi. The real me. Not the doctor, not the billionaire, just me. That's worth more than my father's approval or society's acceptance combined. She clung to him, breathing in his scent, letting his certainty anchor her. He tilted her face up. I love you, he said clearly. I am completely, helplessly in love with you. And I will spend every day proving that you are the best thing that ever happened to me. Her tears turned to watery laughter. I love you too. God help me, I love you so much. 6 months later, spring arrived in New York. Central Park exploded with blossoms. Tobi had officially completed her degree, graduating top of her class. Jin was in the audience, cheering louder than anyone when her name was called. She'd also been offered a position, not as a cleaner but as a junior health coordinator at Manhattan General, working on community outreach programs. One Saturday morning, Jin drove them to the park. They walked hand in hand through the blooming trees. He seemed nervous, which was unusual for him. Tobi noticed but said nothing, enjoying the warmth of the sun and the feeling of his fingers laced with hers. Finally, he stopped at the bow bridge, the same bridge where he used to run alone before dawn, convinced he needed no one. "Tobi," he began. She turned to him, smiling. His heart swelled. She wore a simple yellow dress, and the morning light caught the warmth in her dark eyes. She was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, inside and out. "What's wrong?" she asked. "You look like you're about to perform brain surgery." He laughed nervously. "This is scarier than brain surgery." Before she could respond, he dropped to one knee. Her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my God." From his pocket, he pulled a small velvet box. "Tobi, when I found you in that alley, I thought I was saving your life. But the truth is, you saved mine. You taught me what it means to truly live, to love, to be vulnerable. You are my heart. My home. My everything." Tears streamed down her face. He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring, simple but elegant. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life loving you the way you deserve?" "Yes," she sobbed. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He stood and slid the ring onto her finger, then kissed her deeply while early morning joggers clapped and cheered around them. That evening, Jin's phone rang. His father's name appeared. He almost didn't answer. But Tobi squeezed his hand encouragingly. He picked up. There was a long silence. Then his father spoke, voice rough with emotion. "I saw the engagement announcement. I've been a stubborn fool, Jin. I let pride blind me to what really matters." Jin said nothing, waiting. His father continued. "I hired someone to investigate her. Not to find dirt, but to understand. Do you know what I learned? She sends half her earnings to support her mother's cancer treatment in Ghana. She volunteers at 3 different community clinics. She tutors immigrant children for free. She's brilliant, dedicated, and kind. Everything I thought didn't matter turns out to be everything that does." His voice broke slightly. "I was wrong, son. About love, about strength, about what makes a person worthy. She is extraordinary. And I am sorry it took me this long to see it. Can you forgive a foolish old man?" Jin's throat tightened. He looked at Tobi, who was watching him with those warm, understanding eyes that had changed his entire world. "Yes, father. I forgive you." A week later, his father came to dinner at Jin's penthouse. It was awkward at first. His father looked older, more uncertain. But Tobi greeted him with genuine warmth, no resentment for how he'd treated her. She served traditional Ghanaian food she'd spent all day preparing. As they ate, she asked about his work, his interests, his life. Slowly, the ice thawed. By the end of the evening, Jin's father pulled him aside. "You chose well," he said quietly. "She has more grace and character than anyone I've ever met in our social circles. I understand now why you were willing to risk everything. She is worth it." Jin smiled. "She's worth more than everything, father. She's worth the world." The wedding took place the following spring in a beautiful garden overlooking the Hudson River. It was neither too large nor too small, filled with people who genuinely cared. Tobi's mother, cancer-free and glowing, flew in from Ghana. Jin's father walked her down the aisle alongside her own father, a gesture that brought everyone to tears. The ceremony blended their cultures beautifully. When Jin saw Tobi in her dress, intricate gold threading woven into white silk, traditional Ghanaian patterns mixed with modern elegance, he couldn't breathe. She was radiant. As she walked toward him, he thought back to that rainy night in the alley. How close he'd come to walking past her. How his entire life had pivoted on that single choice to stop, to care, to help. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves. Jin spoke of walls crumbling and hearts opening. Tobi spoke of dignity in darkness and love as strength. There wasn't a dry eye watching. When the officiant pronounced them married, Jin kissed his wife with all the passion he'd once thought himself incapable of feeling. The crowd erupted in applause. At the reception, Jin's father gave a toast. He admitted his mistakes publicly, praising Tobi and acknowledging how wrong he'd been. He welcomed her to the family with genuine warmth. Tobi's mother spoke too, in English mixed with their native language, blessing the union and thanking Jin for seeing her daughter's true worth. It was perfect, messy, real, and full of love. That night, alone finally in the honeymoon suite, Jin pulled Tobi into his arms. "Mrs. Chen," he murmured against her hair. She laughed. "It sounds so strange." "Good strange." "The best strange," she confirmed. He tilted her chin up. "I meant every word I said today. You saved me, Tobi. From a life of hollow success and emotional isolation. You taught me that love isn't weakness. It's the greatest strength there is." She traced his features tenderly. "And you showed me that I was worth fighting for. That my dreams mattered. That where I came from didn't define where I could go." They swayed together in the quiet room, no music needed. Two people from impossibly different worlds who had somehow found each other in the chaos of New York City. Two souls that were always meant to meet, collide, and merge into something extraordinary. Years passed. Tobi became the director of community health initiatives, launching programs that provided free medical care to immigrant communities throughout New York. Jin expanded his hospital network but changed his approach, ensuring every location included charity wings and sliding-scale payment options. Together, they established a foundation providing scholarships for African students pursuing medical degrees in America. They faced challenges, of course. Building a life together across cultural differences required patience, compromise, and constant communication. There were misunderstandings and hard conversations. But every obstacle they overcame made their bond stronger. Jin learned to dance to Ghanaian highlife music. Tobi grew to appreciate his precise, methodical way of solving problems. They taught each other, challenged each other, and loved each other fiercely through it all. On their 5th anniversary, they returned to that bridge in Central Park where he'd proposed. It was early morning again, just like that first time. Jin held their daughter, 3-year-old Alma, while their son, 2-year-old Kofi, ran ahead chasing pigeons. Tobi leaned against her husband, watching their children play, overwhelmed by the fullness of her life. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving up your old life? All those carefully constructed walls and that perfect control?" Alexander laughed. "Regret?" He kissed the top of her head. "Marrying you is the only thing I've never questioned. Not for a single second. You didn't make me give anything up, love. You gave me everything I didn't know I was missing." She turned in his arms. Their children shrieked with laughter in the background. The morning sun painted everything gold. And she knew, deep in her bones, that this was the life she was always meant to find. Not easy, but real. Not perfect, but beautiful. Built on a foundation of two people who had been brave enough to choose love when the world told them not to. The man who once rejected all had finally found the one who made rejection impossible. And in doing so, he discovered that opening your heart wasn't weakness at all. It was the most courageous thing a person could do. In the heart of New York City, against all odds and expectations, love had won. Not the fairy tale kind. The real kind. The kind that weathers storms and builds homes and creates families. The kind that lasts. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who believes in the transformative power of love. Drop a comment telling me which moment resonated most with you. And don't forget to subscribe for more beautiful stories about courage, connection, and the unexpected ways love finds us when we least expect it. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when I post. Thank you for watching, and remember, true love is always worth fighting for.